Thank you guys for the no sound. Okay. So we're talking deals today. My bad. My bad. Talking deals. That was only a couple of minutes. So deals that you guys sent in, that was awesome. We had an event this week. And so we were calling live sellers. So I'm going to talk about a couple of deals, maybe 2 or 3 deals that we worked on at the event, and they were great. Okay, so one student turned in a deal. I know Charles, are you here, Charles? Great job. You turned in a couple that we called on. So remember, guys, every 2 months we do this. So this isn't something that you have missed out on forever. If you want us to call on your leads, like we did this time for Charles's leads, you just need to send them to us. And this next one's coming up in June. So we will give you about a week out warning. And for sure, feel free to turn in leads to us. We'd love to call on them and see if we can close you a deal. And of course, we don't take any profit. We'll tell them we're your partner, but that's just for negotiating purposes. You're going to close and profit all by yourself on this deal. So this one, again, the first deal I want to talk about is a guy who had a property in Florida, and it was about an hour from Fort Lauderdale and about a half hour from Orlando. So within driving distance of a lot of attractions. It was also, it's a regular standing house, but it's kind of an unusual property. It's got a whole acre and it's not in a normal neighborhood. So that's why I think he's been having trouble selling it. He owes $424,500, okay, on the mortgage, and he was open about that. And in fact, guys, we think the house is worth about $440 maybe. So what would when we get it under contract, we're going to be asking $449. We're going to get it under contract for $424,500, what he owes on it. We're going to cover the closing costs. Now in Florida, this is a question. Do we do this as a sandwich lease purchase? If you do it as a sandwich lease purchase, you avoid 3% closing costs. In Florida, they have what they call dock stamps down there. Okay, so I'm going to incur some costs if I take ownership of this property. Maybe 15 grand of closing costs. If I do a sandwich lease purchase, where I just lease purchase it from the seller and turn around and lease purchase it to my buyer, basically I can close it for $300, send them into a title company. Even technically, guys, I don't even have to do that. So, but it's a cheap close and it's a way to get the same terms without paying a bunch of closing costs, especially if the seller's only going to give you 2 or 3 or 5 years. That's a good strategy. I usually say get the deed or get the door, because then you're in the position of power. You own the house. Nobody's telling you what you can do and what you can't do. So that's why I kind of like to do it that way. So on that deal, again, we're taking over a $424,500 mortgage. We are assuming a payment of about, I think the payment was like $1,450 or something. I can't remember exactly, but we've got a $475 a month spread on this one. And we're just buying it for what they owe on it. And so it happens that they owe. Now, if he owed $350 or $200, it'd be a whole different deal. Okay, so that was one of the deals. And I like that property a lot because I think it has Airbnb potential. It's in Florida. It's not that far from Orlando and a lot of other things. It's almost like a little resort on its own. It's its own little acre. So there's things I like about that one. Another property I want to talk to you about was this seller in Detroit. Now, he had fixed up this property. He owned 11 properties and he fixed them all up. He was a flipper and he fixed all 11 up. And guess what? His strategy was to put renters in there. And then later he went back to all 11 of his renters and said, would you like to own the house? Just like what we do, just like our rent to own program, our lease purchase program. So 10 out of his 11 properties sold that way. And this one didn't sell. And this is 2 nurses. It's a mom and a daughter, nurses paying $1,200 a month. How much does the house cost? Now, there's a thing called the 1% rule I want you to be aware of, okay? And that is rent equals 1% or more of value. It's kind of a rule of thumb, a little formula to kind of go by when you're calculating if the property is going to have good cash flow or not. So, or if the farm area is going to have good cash flow. So rent equals 1% plus of value. Somebody type that in. Jennifer's always good at that. All right, so rent equals 1% plus of value. That means now that only works up to about $250,000. Okay, so maybe really it only works up to about $200,000. So can you get $3,000 a month on a $300,000 house in your area? Probably not. But could you get $2,000 on a $200,000 house? Maybe. But could you get $1,500 on a $150,000 house? Again, the 1% rule works best in that 100 to 150 range. Okay, but I want better than the 1% rule. If I'm going to buy and hang on to something. So he was selling this house for 60, but he was renting for 1,200. Guys, that's the 2% rule. You're getting 2%. You're getting 1,200 a month, and there's already a tenant in there. You don't even have to look for somebody. Now, when you buy a house with somebody already in there, you don't get a big non-refundable option deposit. So if you're buying a property with the renter already in there, I want you to ask them right away, would you like to own the property? Now, this guy, Carl was his name, he already did that. He already asked this person if they want to own the house and they can't get it together. They can't get their act together to get the financing. So we're just going to keep them in there probably as a straight renter, or what's our other option? Give them a 30-day notice, evict them, clean up the house. But again, that's some expenses. Probably they've been renting it a while. It's probably going to cost $5,000 to clean it up and make it perfect. So that's some expenses I don't like. So sometimes I just say, hey, leave them in there. I'm making, our payment on a $60,000 house. Now, how are we going to buy this thing? Here's the problem with this one. Carl, the seller, didn't want to do seller financing. He's trying to get out of this property. So what do we do here? This is when we actually use lender funding or a private lender. Guys, we got a $60,000 house. If somebody wants to charge us, I'm serious, we could pay a 10% interest on this and still have about an $800 a month cash flow. They're already paying us $1,200 a month. Okay, it's really low taxes and insurance. And so honestly, if you just buy this house for 60 and go through a regular lender and pay 8 or 9% and get a rental loan. Now, again, if you do that strategy, go through me. I can give you a better deal. We are certified private money brokers, Lynette and I, and so we can help you if you have a deal like this. But again, the guy doesn't want to carry financing, but how do you scoff at that cash flow? It's a $60,000 property. He's getting $1,200 a month. Okay, so this thing, if we went out and got a new loan at a normal interest rate, this should be about a $700 or $800 a month cash flow on one little $60,000 house. And they have already got a tenant in there who are 2 nurses who have good jobs. That's a hard one to say no to. Okay, again, now we are going to have to come up with some financing to buy it. At one point I probably would have written a check to just buy it, but always when you can use OPM, other people's money. Always use OPM when you can. So use a lender if possible. All right, now I'm going to talk about one more deal. And this one was one where he wanted a big down payment. Okay, so this one, the guy was flexible on selling us the house, but he had done seller financing before. And in fact, when Lynette said on the phone, hey, so the way this usually works is we'll cover your payments every month and, until the mortgage is paid off. Guys, that's basically what we're pitching, remember. Well, and this is my favorite line that we say all the time. The way this usually works, we ask them what the payment is. Okay, so the payment's $1,500. Then we say, so the way this usually works is we'll cover that payment till the mortgage is paid off. That's the whole pitch, guys. So the way this usually works is we'll cover that payment till the mortgage is paid off. You understand that, right? So I'll usually say, you understand that, right? Sometimes I say, doesn't that sound good? But I'm not going to be that bold on that one. I'm going to say, do you understand that, right? So the way this usually works is we'll cover that payment for you until the mortgage is paid off. You understand that, right? Yep, great. All right, so I'll be coming over today in a couple hours. All right, so that's the pitch, and that's how I want you to close these things. And that's what the deal was on this one. So we said, we're going to cover that payment for you until the mortgage is paid off. And he said, look, I'll do it, but I've actually done this before. I did this on a couple of my houses in the past. And on one of them in the 80s, something went all crazy. I mean, this guy's a little older, and he said, the bottom dropped out of the market, and so I'm a little gun shy about doing it, but I'll do it if what? If you give me a big down payment. Okay, so he wanted a big down payment. So now if you want a big down payment, how are you going to do that? You're going to turn that deal down unless you can use OPM, okay, other people's money. Now, I will tell you that we work with a lender that will do seller subordination. That's the only way you're going to get a big down payment. That's the only way I want you to do it. Okay, so if you run into a deal like this where a seller says, look, I got a $350,000 house, I'll give it to you for a reasonable monthly payment, $1,400 a month or $1,700 a month, something that leaves you a $500 a month spread or more. And I will do that, but I need to get a certain amount down. Okay. So if they're going to do that down thing, then we have to have a house that's either free and clear or that we can pay off the mortgage, because we're going to get a new first mortgage, and then we're going to carry, the seller's going to carry a second mortgage behind it. And so this is a different way to structure a deal. But if anybody ever wants a big down payment, I want you to look up this seller subordination, or subordination is the strategy. We just call it blended funding, because you're using a lender funding and seller financing together. But when you structure that properly, I mean, that's a nothing down deal where you're getting other people's money to cover your down. Okay, so those were 3 deals that we did this week at the class. And they were great. And guys, I really encourage that you send in leads, because I'd love to close it. We do this every 7 weeks, every 2 months. We do this event again. So sometime in June, I believe like June 9th or something, you're going to have another shot to send us some leads. And we would love to call them for you. But Charles, awesome job. Charles, we called your leads. Charles Ebanks, awesome job, Charles, sending us 4 incredibly good leads. And yes, we talked to a couple of them, and we're giving you an update. Okay, so yes, I know I was on audio. Happy Friday, Jennifer. Yay. Yes, hooked on phonics. Okay, yes, happy Friday. Yes, now I got the thing. It took me 2 minutes. Every 2 months, yes. So the next one's coming up in June. And $475 spread. That's right. And guys, it's amazing how on some of these cheaper properties, we have a property in Detroit we bought recently for 50 grand. Our payment is like $445 a month, and it's a private lender, and and we're making $1,200 a month payment. So for whatever reason, Detroit has high rents. That's another property in Detroit. And as soon as I saw that this property was in Detroit, we were asking the guy about the 1% rule. So he was saying he's getting $1,200 a month. And then we asked him, and I hadn't seen the sheet yet. And Lynette said, so what's your asking price? What's the least you'll sell for? And I'm kind of holding my breath with that 1% rule. We got to hear at least, something under 120,000, right? But I'd really like to hear lower. And then when he said 60, I almost fell out of my chair. So I said, wow, okay, that's a deal that I'm going to, even if I have to use lender funding, however I can get this funded, it's a massive cash flow with 2 nurses, a mom and a daughter already living in there paying $1,200 a month and happy to stay. So, that's a cash cow if I ever saw one. So I really like that one. Rent equals 1% plus of value. Thank you. Yes, Jennifer, I knew I could count on you. That's the formula. Now that's a good formula for picking your farm area, like Detroit. It shows very well with that formula, Cleveland, other cities like that, and not the whole city, just some areas in that city work. But I'll tell you right now, there's almost no cities in California where the 1% rule is going to apply. Pretty much that's going to be in markets where the prices are under 200 or under 250. And I think everybody should have a market like that. We have properties in 5 different states, and some of them are Indiana and Detroit and places where you can buy cheap houses. Arizona, we can't buy them cheap like that anymore. So again, it's a virtual business. I want you to find a good farm area that's under 150, 50 to 150. I want you to find an area where you can buy houses 50 to 150. Good morning. Hey, Charles, again, super thanks for sending in those leads. We deal structured them, and I will talk to you more about that. And Lynette will call you. So awesome. Looking forward to our next event. So guys, I love talking deals. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say, if you ever want to send me a deal, I like talking about deals. If you ever want to send me a deal, if you have questions about a deal, I would love to look at it. You guys have my cell number. Text me on my cell number. If you really want to get a hold of me, text me on my cell phone number. I promise you I will get that. And that's the, I'll go ahead and put it in here again. I put it in last week for you guys when you were sending in leads. And so I'm doing it again. And then again, Brian's cell. So you can call me. I'm going to give you guys permission to call me. If you have a deal, I like talking about deals. I like talking about deals here, and I'm here every Monday and Friday. So if you got deals cooking that are interesting or you have questions about, I'm happy to talk about them. So for sure, Let me know, text me anything you need. And you can always email us too, wolfcouple@gmail.com. That's a good, and if you want to send me leads and stuff, I will look at them there too. Okay. I think I got that right. Did I? Did you guys get that? I think so. Okay, so I will see you next. What am I? Next on Monday. So let's see what we can get cooking over the weekend. Let's get some good deals out there. But watch this over if you missed part, because this deal structuring is really helpful. And when you get a feeling for what kind of deals we're putting together out there, I love doing deals. That's our affirmation today. Let's say that 3 times on 3. I love doing deals. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I love doing deals. I love doing deals. I love doing deals. Yeah. All right. The 3 deep breaths. Nice deep breath in. This gets you invigorated, physically ready for your day. Let's always have a big smile when we're doing our deep breathing. This really perks you up mentally and physically. One more. Real deep. Hold it a little bit and then exhale fully. Awesome. Relax your neck and shoulders. Get ready for an awesome day. All right, guys. So I will see you on Monday. Until then, keep expecting success, getting awesome training from the Wolf Couple, and taking action. And yes, I love doing deals. Yay. All right, Jennifer. See you guys on Monday.